Howdy! So Shigeru Miyamoto himself crawled out of his hole from Super Nintendo World to officially announce the live-action Legend of Zelda film. I was working on another small video regarding UI and a bunch of games like Destiny and God of War, but I gotta talk about this first. This will be a quick talk, but I want to examine why I think a live-action Zelda movie could actually work, but probably won't. Now personally, just to get this out of the way, I'd prefer it to be animated. I think animation suits the Zelda world incredibly well, and Wind Waker is a fan favorite thanks to its wonderful cartoon visuals. But I'm also not opposed to live action, and I think it can work. I'll go over every element that I think's important to get right for the film, whether it's live action or not. This is all coming from a very biased, subjective fan of the series. This isn't an objective analysis, and I don't have the right answers for how to make something as difficult as a film, but I've been playing these games for as long as I could read and speak, so you can think of this video as what I believe are the elements that make a Zelda game, and how these elements should be translated for a film, all coming from a lifelong fan of the series. First off, the main characters. I'll leave casting out of this conversation, but needless to say, I'm not sure the world is ready for Chris Pratt as Ganondorf. Anyways, I know there may be some concerns regarding casting and characters, specifically around our beloved mute protagonist Link, although I think Link's characterization won't actually be too much of an issue. First off, canonically speaking, Link does talk. We, as the player, just never see it. He has small conversations in Skyward Sword, he's confirmed to have conversations with Zelda in Breath of the Wild. In fact, his lack of speaking is an aspect of his character in Breath of the Wild. So I think a live-action Link could work completely fine, so long as the focus is more on his physicality and facial expressions, rather than his words. As with Zelda, Ganondorf, and others, just look to the cutscenes in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. They're decent foundations to work from. I don't think characterization for Zelda and Ganondorf is going to be a problem. Next off is all of the other side characters, all the NPCs, other races. I gotta say that I think this will be a pretty important thing to get right. The Zelda franchise has had so many great side characters like Beetle, Tingle, Groose, Darunia, Tingle, the Postman, Impa, Tingle. I think The Legend of Zelda feels so lively because of all the wonderful and mysterious characters that exist in that world. And I think it would be a big oversight for the filmmakers to not utilize the endless encyclopedia of Zelda characters. I say the weirder the better, like the Clown Twins from Twilight Princess, or the Battleship Guy from Wind Waker. They help breathe a lot of life into these worlds, and I think should be just as important to get right as our Triforce trio. Next is the music. This one's gonna be tough, since film score is treated much differently than video game soundtracks, but I think they gotta go real hard on the music. You need to have those bombastic, heroic themes that really sell the grandiose nature of the history of the world and the adventures that await Link and the viewer. I think the Lord of the Rings films are great inspiration in this regard. The music is as important to those stories as the characters and setting. I think it'd be a giant mistake if the film didn't open with an iconic song that the audiences will remember, as do so many of their games. Set design, sound design, and costumes are gonna be big things. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of diverse locations featuring the unique races, but these locations won't matter if the set design and costumes don't sell the feeling of these worlds being tangible. I'm sure they'll mostly try to use CGI, which I don't really have a problem with if it's used well, but I think the most important thing to sell is the feeling of these places. Goron City from Ocarina of Time is not the craziest location, basically just a giant underground cave, so sound is going to play a big part in making these locations come to life, as well as the music, of course. I also think the set and sound design will be crucial in dungeons. Creepy, dark, isolating, dangerous. So many different emotions and feelings can be stirred within the viewers if you make the world feel alive. And last, and what I think is the most important but most difficult aspect to get right, is going to be all about the World of Hyrule, or Termina, or Koholint Island. And this more or less encompasses every previous point I've mentioned so far. But many Zelda games, especially the 3D ones, all have very distinct worlds with fun blends of different genres and moods. Ocarina of Time comes across as a traditional fantasy adventure, but it's got time travel. Majora's Mask also has time travel, but with an unsettling and dark atmosphere. Wind Waker is a colorful cartoon swashbuckling adventure that balances big fantasy beasts with pirates. Twilight Princess has alternate dark world dimensions, as does Link Between Worlds. Link's Awakening's got an island full of talking animals and mystery. You get what I mean. The Zelda franchise has never felt tied down by any real restriction or rules. You can have grand fantasy elements alongside futuristic technology, and everything in between, like a regular ass train. It's a unique world that sticks to a general fantasy theme, but expands beyond it whenever possible. There are no normal elves or orcs or dwarves to be found. There's Hylians, Gerudo, Rito, Gorons, Zoras. Everything feels unique to this world in a way that makes sense given the 35-year history of the franchise. And that's the most important thing for the filmmakers to get right above all else, in that there is no one single easy formula to follow for Zelda. I say be bold, take some elements from each of these games. time travel, dimension hopping, a blend of ancient and future technologies, and create your own spin on it. I think it'd be a grave mistake to try and adapt any single one of these stories faithfully. The Legend of Zelda is right there in the name. A legend, a story, a myth about a young woman from an ancient and powerful bloodline whose fate intertwines with an evil force that seeks power, and a noble chosen hero who rises to confront that evil. The Zelda timeline has never been really all that consistent because the timeline doesn't really matter. The same story can be told many different ways, but at the end of the day, it's a story about good triumphing over evil. The Legend of Zelda wears its heart on its sleeve, and to me, that warrants an adaptation that seeks to respect the source material and honor the heartfelt intention of the developers, who've wanted to create an adventure that allows the player to save the land of Hyrule and be the unwavering, courageous hero. Shigeru Miyamoto is quoted saying that Link was created to be a normal boy with a destiny to fight great evil. In the Nintendo Zelda Encyclopedia, Hyrule Historia, he says his name Link is important because he connects people together, and that he was supposed to spread the scattered energy of the world through the ages. To me, that idea of a noble hero who seeks to save the world is simple but sincere, and is the connecting tissue that binds the different legends of Zelda together. It's a story that can be told in many different ways, and I hope the film takes risks to stand on its own merit, rather than riding by on name and Hollywood budget alone. But everything I've mentioned is so much easier said than done, and like I said, this is all just from my perspective as both a fan of the franchise and a big film lover. Everything I say should be taken with a grain of salt. With all these elements in place, I think the live action film could work, but it probably won't. And I think will likely end up like the Mario movie, a fine but forgettable film. This is a series that's built its legacy on creativity and imagination, and it'd be a shame for a film adaptation to overlook the art that inspired it. But who cares about art? It's probably gonna make a bunch of money anyways. Yay! Go money!